And welcome back, everyone. So I've been sitting on this video for a little bit now, and now our leaks, which don't give us any information on the starters really, except that there are starters, and the fact that we're literally only maybe 3 months ish away from Pokemon Day, give or take a week or two. I thought, it's time. Let's talk about this. Now, first off, I want to be very clear. I didn't make this. This is from someone named Trib Dinosaur. So yeah, they made this. So I just want to be very clear. But it was the best image I could find of all the starters together that I could use for this video as an example. I felt it was fun. It was time to play the guessing game. Can we guess what the Generation 10 starters are going to be? And to be honest, sometimes it's easier than other times, but there are guesses we can make to be sure. So what can we deduce about the Gen 10 starters? Well, we can actually do a few things to confirm what they're not going to be. First of all, if you actually look at each row of starters here, not one single base design, be it Bulbasaur being a toad/frog, Chikorita being a little pear dinosaur, lizard, turtle, snake, hedgehog, squirrel, owl, and so forth. And you look at it down with the fires and down with the water stars. No design has ever been repeated to date. We haven't yet to see that. So we can at least go off that for now. If it proves us wrong next time around, just like the Chinese Zodiac theory got disproved in Gen 9, we'll go from there. That'll mean speculation goes completely out the window at that point. But we can at least say right now that they will not repeat it as a base design, a base concept from the original generation. Also, if you actually look down the line, nothing in the coming generation repeats from the previous generation. What do I mean by that? Well, again, let's look at Gen 1s and quickly. Squirtle, Turtle, Salamander, Lizard, Bulbasaur, Toad. There you go. Toad Dinosaur. Chikorita, you can make an argument, is dinosaur, but it's just pure dinosaur shaped like a little pear. Cyndaquil, Echidna, Totodile, Crocodile. Then you got Lizard, Bird, more or less. Chicken, to be fair. Lizard, Bird, and Amphibian. Then you get Turtle, Monkey, Penguin. And again, I'm obviously going by the starter order: Grass, Fire, Water. Snake, Pig, Otter. Again, Chespin, squirrelish thing, Hedgehog, Fox, Frog, Owl, Cat/Tiger, Seal, Monkey, Rat. Nothing has, and then Cat, Crocodile / a little alligator, Duck. Nothing has repeated from the previous generation. So what we can deduce about each starter is this: none of the starters are going to be a cat, a crocodile, or a duck. Doesn't mean they couldn't still be a bird in there. Just means they're not going to be a duck. Also, the water starter will not be a turtle, a crocodile, amphibian, duck, penguin, otter, frog, seal, or a chameleon-esque lizard thing. And so forth and so on for the fire starter. Fire starter will not be a salamander, lizard, or crocodile, echidna, chicken, monkey, pig, fox, cat, or rabbit. And the grass starter will not be a toad dinosaur, the little dinosaur pear thing, or little dinosaur, lizard, gecko, turtle, snake, again, Chespin, squirrel. We'll just say squirrel. Owl, monkey, or cat. So that's what we can for certain say they will not be. We do also have to take in consideration that the location, for everything we know about it, suppose we haven't read the Terra Leaks, is that it will be Southeast Asia. So some influence is going to be there for Southeast Asia in some way. But that doesn't inherently mean each of those three of those mod will be something from that region. If you look at Gen 5 and beyond, because the first 4 gens were all Japan. Snivy is a vine snake. We actually know that. That's what's roughly based off of. Pignite, Otter, all those are in the States and in that general area. Even in Kalos, generally in that area. There are no tigers, though, in Hawaii. So Litten's a bit of an outlier. And then it gets even more weird. Sure, you got rabbits in the UK. Whatever Lizard Sobble's actually supposed to be on, kind of a chameleon thing, not really in the UK. And there are no monkeys in the UK. Though to be fair, Grookey is more based off the group the Monkees and music. They're all based on some sort of thing from the UK. Spy films like James Bond. The UK loves sports, so that's what Cinderace is, and obviously the Monkees drumming rock, all that. And then you Sprigatito. I mean, it's a cat, which is kind of a Puss in Boots type of thing that turns into a performer, kind of doing a carnival a little bit. Fuecoco, there are no crocodiles in Spain. Duck, sure, and it's a dancer. They're all more, but it's a singer, a dancer, and a performer. So mostly they can be creatures that are from that area, but there are exceptions. So without further ado, what is my take on what I think the Gen 10 starters are going to be? Now, keep in mind, I have no inside track on this. It's just my prediction. We'll see how correct I am when we get there. So let's start off first, as always, with the grass starter. I think we got actually 3 solid options here, in my opinion. And I could be dead wrong on all these. First up, I think we are long overdue for a bear starter, particularly the sun bear. No joke, my favorite bear. They're the smallest bear in the world, but they're still like 5 foot something, pure muscle. They're also kind of just big dopes. They have these super long tongues. They get this sun-shaped mark on their chest, which is where their name comes from. But they don't make no mistake. They can still mess you up. But if you ever see like videos of them, they are kind of just big teddy bears in some ways too. Like they're just like they purr or they hum too when they're getting what they want. But again, they have these super long tongues. My idea has always been for a sun bear Pokemon grass starter, make it a grass electric type. Maybe because you still want some aspect of the sun bear influence in there. The sun isn't electricity, but it produces light. So that sun marking glows with electrical energy. It could even gain electrical abilities from it actually probably even grows like a berry bush around its neck, and so it can actually have fresh fruit in hard times. And it can generate electricity through things like static electricity, maybe eating certain berries, whatever. And that'd be its hidden ability, which it would be a new ability that, if it eats berries during a fight, it actually increases its electrical capabilities. So I think that's a cool idea for a grass starter. But another starter Pokemon that we are long overdue for is a bat, particularly a fruit bat. I think a fruit bat between the 3 elemental stars, water, fire, and grass, makes the most sense to have. A water bat doesn't really make that much sense, although it would be an interesting concept to do. A fire bat does make it. There are fan-made starters for fire bats too. But long and short, I do think a grass bat Pokemon makes the most sense. Now, I mentioned a fruit bat. I have a flying fox here as an image. There are other fruit bats besides the flying fox. One of them specifically is like the hammer nose bat, which has this giant-ass nose. And I mean, you could go many different routes. Again, it could be a bat that kind of like its wings maybe become branches that fruit grows off of. It flies and feeds maybe the pre-evolution form, so they live in these giant colonies. Would it remain a flying type though? That would be the thing, because we know there are Pokemon that have wings that aren't even flying types. So like Hydreigon can fly, but it's not a flying type. So it's interesting to figure out where it go, but yeah, I think we're a bit overdue for it. Last but not least, though, I have been pitching this idea for a while now, a Kiwi starter Pokemon. Now, this would be kind of one of those things where, okay, the Pokemon idea itself isn't necessarily from Southeast Asia. Kiwis are found, I believe, on New Zealand. But because of where I think this evolutionary line could go, you could still work it in. Papua New Guinea is half part of Southeast Asia and half part of more like the Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania area. So where I'm getting at is this. First off, it could also be kind of a clue out to an Australian region as well, imported from a different region, as starters tend to sometimes be. But more to the point, my whole idea is it starts as the Kiwi as the base form. This little almost Kiwi-looking Kiwi Pokemon bird. Then it evolves and turns either into an emu or something else, a slightly larger bird. And then its full evolution would either be the Moa or it would be the Cassowary. We actually know for a fact in Gen 6 there was originally going to be a Cassowary Pokemon. We have leaked stuff for that, so we knew they had the idea for Cassowary because they knew this thing is pretty much a living freaking Pokemon. And no doubt, I would have this be either a grass fighting type if it's a Cassowary, or better yet, a grass steel type. Now, does that make it quad weak to fire? Yeah, but it's already a grass type. It was already going to be weak to fire to begin with, so it's really not all that big of a deal. So it's so it's still a really basic and really good progression line I like for this Pokemon idea. So those would be my 3 takes for the grass starter of this region thus far. Okay, so that is our grass starter theory. Let's move on to our fire starter Pokemon. This one was a little bit harder to figure out, but I think I definitely came up with some ideas. First of all, if we are still sticking with the idea of the Chinese Zodiac, even though we're kind of now, Fuecoco has completely destroyed that, unless you want to go, and I've heard some people use this theory, with the idea that a male alligator is called a bull. We never got a bull Pokemon. So, that being said, I still think an ox Pokemon would make sense. They have oxen, they actually have plenty of ox in Indonesia. Southeast Asia, Indonesia. This is a shaggy ox. Looks a little bit like a yak, but they're not the same animal. There's many different routes you could go. You could actually go the Minotaur route with this, although I'd still rather say that for a Greek-based region. According to the release, the reason they didn't want to go with a Greek-based region, allegedly, is because they used up too many ideas for European-inspired Pokemon. Yeah, except Greece is technically part of Europe, but it's actually part of the Mediterranean, which is actually separate from Europe. And not to mention, there's plenty of freaking ideas from Greek mythos alone. Have you seen Greek-made starter regions before? Game Freak? What the fuck? Anyway. So yeah, I still think an ox is on the table. I also think we're due for our next snake starter Pokemon. If you watch, I believe it's Lox and Noggin's Cascade region video, he did a snake starter. It's a pretty good snake starter. I believe it's Thurple, Asphalt, and Raboa. It's a pretty good snake starter. I do think, though, like a Cobra does make more sense. When you think of snake fire starters, Cobras come up a lot. And to be fair, I think it's got the most design elements to it, because you really can't go rattlesnake, at least at this time, I think. Because, rattlesnakes aren't native to... rattlesnakes don't exist outside of the United States. Or, not the United States, but the... out of the Americas. They're a New World snake. Now, again, that doesn't still mean you could bring it in, because, again, not every snake or not every animal is directly from the region they're inspired from. But most likely it wouldn't be a rattlesnake. It would probably be something like a cobra or something venomous at any rate. Just because I don't see a python or a big heavy like constrictor snake being the fire type. Fire's very active, very spreading, very, volatile. That leans more towards a poison or a dark type generally. But, I mean, really, when you think of the dual typing, we don't have all that much. We have a flying fire starter. We have God knows how many fire fighting starters. We have a fire psychic. We have a fire dark. We have a fire ghost. And that's about it right now. There's still plenty of types you could throw in there. You could figure out a fire dragon, no problem. I doubt they'll do a dragon starter, but unless you throw in either an ice or fairy to counteract it. Or make them all dragons and make it even. But yeah, I still think a fire snake is very much on the table. And let me put it this way: any region that has a lot of a lot of snakes in them to begin with, and I mean region like the real world region they're based off of, is a prime. Like if we ever get to a South American, Brazil, Central America, Mexico, kind of based region, snake starters still 1,000% on the table in those regions, 1,000%. But if you get to regions that don't make as much sense for them, another European-based region, if we're going to be honest, a Russian, a Canada was apparently also on the table. Well, now you're getting into regions where those don't quite make as much sense, to be honest. Last but not least, though, this is my wild card option here. I'm not saying they'll do it, but I think it would be a really cool one. There is a mammal that exists within Southeast Asia that is red-ish at least, and is not something I think we've really considered. A fire rhino, because the Sumatran rhino is a red, hairy rhinoceros. It's a very rare animal, but it's so unique and cool. It is, in fact, a hairy rhino, basically kind of like one of the last bygones of remains of a bygone age kind of thing. Because we know in history books and as well as paleontology that we had woolly rhinos, super hairy rhinos that existed way back in the era. So this is kind of a holdover from that a little bit. It just lives in the tropics now. And the fact is, it's hairy. If you've seen little bit of things of the babies, they actually got little fur tufts. They're adorable. So the idea of a hairy rhinoceros starter Pokemon, where maybe it actually is. Whoa, scary. Sorry, there was a little background. I moved my hand there and bopped the lamp. But maybe it's the idea of this rhino who's only got like maybe its horn is also is made of fire. Like it doesn't actually have a legit horn until like its final evolution. Its only fire is initially the horn. But then the horn grows a little bit, it's less fire on it, and it's starting to get fire all over its body until the very end, where now it has this full solid horn that's maybe red hot, glowing white hot or something like that, and it also has fire jettisoning off of it. I'm just spitballing here. But I do think this would actually, first off, since it sounds like we're getting Southeast Asia, I have no doubt there's going to be a rhino Pokemon, a new rhino Pokemon. We have actually been overdue for a rhino Pokemon for some time. Because if you actually think about it, the only thing we have is Rhyhorn. Like, I'm just going to Google it right now to be sure I'm not talking out my ass right now. But, let's see. Rhino Pokemon. Is there any Rhino Pokemon besides Rhyhorn and Rhydon? Which Rhydon isn't even at that point a Rhino. Technically speaking, Nidorino has elements of a Rhino, but let's not kid ourselves. Nidorino is not a Rhino. It's not a rhino. But Rhyhorn is a rhino. It's literally got Rhy, which is, rhinoceros in its name. And so, but that's it. We're well overdue for a new rhinoceros Pokemon. And what better place than the place with a hairy rhino? It's such a unique animal. It's literally a Pokemon in and of itself. If not a starter, it's got to be something, because they are rare. In real life, Sumatran rhinos are very rare. They're not extinct, but they are on the endangered species list, if I'm not mistaken. If not, make it one of those like static encounters where you can only catch one of them in the game. Or hell, make it a mythical Pokemon. Yeah, that might sound weird, but make it a mythical Pokemon. So I don't know. That's just I'm spitballing on that. Last but not least, we have the water starter. And again, some of these are pretty basic. Like I already talked about an ox starter. I think a water buffalo starter is also very possible as well. Indonesia's got plenty of water buffalo. Hell, they're one of the main food sources for Komodo dragons on the island of Komodo, which, by the way, is in Southeast Asia. I would not put it past them to make a new Komodo dragon type creature, like a poison dragon type, a single stage or something like that. Hell, maybe it could be the pseudo-legendary Pokemon, like a poison dragon pseudo-legendary. We don't have that combination yet. I'm also among the people who probably would like something different for the mythical, but I keep saying mythical, pseudo-legendary, but I'm also fine with dragons being the pseudo-legendary until we go through every single type combination of dragons. But still, water buffalo, they make sense. By the way, the Rhino starter, I could see it being like a rock fire type. And actually, that would really make a lot of sense too, especially if you actually pair it against the steel grass cassowary. Because even though it would have a times 4 strength against the cassowary, the steel typing could take advantage of the fire typing's rock type, so that could actually work in its favor. The snake, I would again say, is probably either a dark poison. Although there are avenues you could go beyond that as well. I've actually always theorized you could do a winged serpent kind of thing. But the Mazza region from Subjectively, he kind of did that. And honestly, I wish he just kept it a snake and not given it limbs, but whatever. And then what was the third one? The ox. The ox, take your pick. That could be a fighting, a ground, a rock, a fairy. Take your pick on that one. As for a water buffalo starter Pokemon, water rock can work. Water steel can work. I mean, technically speaking, any type can work in theory. What you're probably never going to see is a starter that takes but like something like a bug or normal as a secondary type. But who knows? It's not impossible. I don't see it. But if they're not starting as a bug, I couldn't see it. Otherwise, I mean, like when you come to something as generic as an ox, it's you're it's pretty open to what it could be. But like I said, I think we're still overdue for another snake starter. So I think a water snake is also very possibly on the list here. This is the banded sea crate. It's not labeled as a sea snake. It is actually separate because unlike other sea snakes who are not evolved to be on land anymore and struggle, banded sea crates can actually go on land. And surprisingly, they're pretty docile too. Granted, you still probably shouldn't mess with one because they are highly venomous. I mean, highly. But they are also gorgeous snakes. Like there's blue, black, whites, yellows mixed into them. They are gorgeous to look at, which would already make for a very vivid, brilliant looking design for a Pokemon. But beyond that, because it's now a sea snake type of Pokemon, there's more I think you can do with the design. Because you could go, I mean, even though we had Hydrapple in Scarlet and Violet, so you might not be able to get a Hydra per se, but maybe a multi-headed creature could still be on the docket. But this would be a case where the sea snake could turn into something that has legs or flippers or something like that, and I don't think it's out of place. You could turn it into something akin to maybe like a Plesiosaur-esque serpent creature or something like that. You could still turn it into maybe give it some sort of leg growth or something like that. Maybe it could turn into a water flying type and just turn into a flying sea snake. I'm spitballing here. But it could. I think poison would be on the table for this, definitely. Any snake Pokemon, poison is still on the table. You could dragon, as if they ever decide to go dragon, could definitely do a dragon. I'm trying to think if there's any other real options here. The snakes are a little bit like I can't really see it being a fighting type. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure water dark works, but maybe. But you know what? We haven't done water. We've done grass ghost, we've done fire ghost. We have not done water ghost yet for the starter Pokemon. So I think maybe like a ghost snake kind of thing, where it shed its skin, but the skin's still on there. That could kind of work. I mean, there's ideas here. Let me know if you can expand on them. Last but not least, though, I think another thing we're overdue for is an elephant starter. Now, this could also be in the grass. I think this will be my runner-up for a grass-type Pokemon starter for the suggestion. But if we're going by predictions, I'm going to stick with the 3. But I think we are overdue for an elephant starter. And I think it would be fun for it to be a water starter. We've seen some fan-made water starters, elephants, and they are cute. They are adorable. There's ideas of it being a psychic type, or it could be a fighting type, or, it could just be a standard water type as well. It could be something like a fairy type, flying elephant kind of thing. It would be a flying type in theory. But, yeah, ultimately, I would say that the elephant idea is pretty prime. It's one of those animals, along with the rhino, that, well, not even more so than the rhino. It's one of those animals that we've kind of been expecting a starter at some point at some time. But it's not, it's just it hasn't shown up yet. So we'll have to wait and see what we ultimately get. But these are my Gen 10 starter predictions. Let me know what your predictions are for the Gen 10 starters. Do you think any of mine have any validity to them? Or do you think I may be reaching a bit too far? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.